Preparing for flu season amid the coronavirus pandemic. From symptoms to treatments, what you need to know to keep you and your family healthy. Well, over the last couple of days, we've talked about how doctors are recommending you get the flu shot this year. It's a scary thought as the pandemic, of course, continues and we approach flu season. And especially since both viruses have very similar symptoms. So what do you need to know? How do you differentiate? How do you keep your family healthy? A lot of questions here. So that's why we are checking in this morning with Dr. Sharon Thompson to get some ideas of what we really need to know, because it can be a tough one, especially with these symptoms the same. Good morning, Dr. Thompson.
Good morning. Yeah, healthcare providers are feeling a little queasy as we approach flu season because, as you mentioned, the symptoms for flu and coronavirus are the same. And so it makes us nervous that we're going to be facing a winter with difficulty distinguishing between these two. So we definitely, as you mentioned, recommend getting that flu shot.
Okay, so we know that they are available starting this week, right? So
can you now?
What about people? I think we're having some issues. Are we okay, Dr. T?
Yeah.
You hear us okay? All right,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your last question.
Let's talk about if you can explain to folks how they can differentiate, because healthcare workers are worried that, people will have symptoms. They'll think, oh my gosh, is it coronavirus? And they'll flood hospitals, they'll flood ERs and doctors' offices. What do people need to know in differentiating between the two?
One thing that is clearly a difference between coronavirus and flu, if you lose your sense of taste and smell, that is almost certainly coronavirus. Definitely you want to get tested. If you have milder symptoms that are not persistent, so you just feel a little crummy or have a runny nose, that could be either one. And as we know, the important thing in that case is separation from other people so you don't give it to them, whether it's flu or coronavirus. So if you have mild symptoms that are, you feel terrible, but you're not, you're breathing normally, you don't have fever that's persistent for days, quarantine yourself, wash your hands well, stay away from family members, keep that mask on, and that will be sufficient. But if you lose your taste or smell, that is almost certainly coronavirus. Get a test.
All right, contact your doctor at that point. And it's interesting to note because the treatments for both, if they're fairly mild, are the same, as you just mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the important thing for mild disease is not to give it to someone else. That's what's absolutely critical. Even flu, we want to prevent spreading it. Remember, flu is a deadly disease. Tens of thousands of Americans die from flu every year, and there are hundreds of thousands of hospitalizations. So we don't want to spread flu. The good news is the upside, if there's any upside to infectious disease, is that the same precautions that keep us from getting coronavirus will keep us from getting the flu. Wash those hands copiously. You can't wash your hands too much. Wear that mask. Protects against flu and coronavirus. Stay 6 feet away. Same precautions work for both. Fortunately for flu, there is a vaccine. So do get that vaccine.
Is anything different with this year's vaccine? Obviously, they change it every year to see what's going to be the biggest strain. How is it different? Is it going to help anybody to not also maybe or protect themselves better from even coronavirus?
Yeah, we have no evidence that the flu vaccine is going to protect you against coronavirus. In fact, the opposite, because if you remember, this pandemic started in the midst of flu season, where we had lots of folks who were vaccinated for flu. So I don't want people to feel like if you get a flu vaccine, you're protected against coronavirus. As far as we know, you are not. And so what scientists in the U.S. do every year is they look around the world to get a hint about which flu strains to include in the vaccine. One thing that's a little bit challenging this year is because of the coronavirus pandemic and the precautions that other countries have taken, sadly better than the U.S., we can't look at what's happened in other countries as an indicator of what we might expect because the response to coronavirus has been so different around the world. And like I said, the same precautions will affect flu. So we just have to do as best as we can to follow those guidelines: hand washing, masks, distance, same every year. Get your vaccine.
Things we can be doing. Thank you so much, Dr. Thompson. We sure appreciate your time.
Thank you.